We are live. I am waiting for confirmation on my end to see if this worked, everyone. Hold on. We are live. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the first fireside chat on Futurum Equities. You have myself, Stock Savvy Shay. We got the GOAT, Daniel Newman, and we got the new bug, Ray Wang, joining us today. I want to first pass this to Ray because I'm sure this is your first week at Futurum Equities. I kind of want to hear all the dirt right from Daniel's eyes and my eyes to see like what's actually going wrong, what's right, how you feel about it. But I'm going to popcorn over to you.
Yeah, so I joined Futurum as a research director covering semiconductor emerging technology. I think first week's been very, very good. It's an amazing job for me to have. And, already been talking to a lot of my colleagues, analysts, and people handling kind of different stuff. I also talk with some companies. So I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah,
it's been amazing so far.
Yeah, your background though, just graduated, did your master's at Georgetown economics, and your hobby is what, reading equities research reports. I mean, talk about that, because I honestly, when I first met you, that was so impressive. I was like, so you're self-taught. This is a really hard industry, but in this era, it's like you can go to get a degree in physics or engineering or computer science, and like everything you've learned within a few years is now obsolete. So what I think was most impressive is watching you build your X account, watching you sort of covering all this research, paying attention. I mean, what got you into like the chip space? I mean, obviously the economics background, being having descent from Asia, which is obviously the epicenter of chip building and stuff. But like, what's kind of got your passion? What kind of caught your fire?
Yeah, I think it's multi-layer, born and raised in Taiwan and also spend time living in Korea. All, people like in the stock market or people just in the market really care about whole semiconductor ecosystem. So it's pretty like naturally you're being kind of immersed in the environment, you care about those companies, right? So that's kind of what initially got me started. And when I was in undergrad, I was writing a paper and one of my professors saying, hey, why you guys like do this like a big project? And back then we were doing research on the semiconductor companies in Taiwan, China, and US, and we can also kind of dig into the policy. And later on, I think like in the past 2 years, that really getting into it is like I just started meeting friends in the finance industry, and they sometimes like send me active report every single day. And I try to read that like every single day, and that really built up a lot of my expertise. And apparently, having that regular reading habits every single day over the past few years, that really helps because essentially establish a lot of stats where I would call like the foundations. And essentially when I write analysis, I can put things together. And that's the most important things. Apparently at Georgetown, I have a lot of great policy experience. And, in these days, it's very important, right? We just saw today's news, what's going on, right? I can quickly understand what's going on. And that's really helpful so far, yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's great to hear. Quick question, just what's your favorite semiconductor stock?
Oh, man. So yeah, I can just I think like my favorite will be Nvidia. This is nothing crazy, but
yeah, of course.
So I'm looking very closely Nvidia, especially on their supply chain partner. There's some companies that significantly underrated. I think in abroad, I think in Taiwan, people like watching super closely. There's so many ODMs that their revenue just go skyrocket over the past, to basically in Q2 and also like I think in late 2024. So like, if you see that, it's just like a lot of great companies. But I will see Nvidia, apparently the supply chain ecosystem it's leading is being amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of people's answers would be Nvidia, but I kind of want to hop it over to you, Daniel, on this latest headline I just saw, because I know you and I have been talking about this a lot on Perplexity. I think that's going to be the acquisition gem for a lot of players in this LM arm race. And news story before I pass it to you is Meta reportedly explored acquiring Perplexity before the Scale deal, which was the $15 billion deal. I call it a talent acquisition deal for Alexander Wang, but whatever, it might be a hot take. But like,
so many Wangs out there.
Wang, I know,
back, right? That's the jam. So first of all, I have been steadfast and almost overtly focused on the fact that I think Apple should have acquired Perplexity. And I know it probably doesn't actually solve all of Apple's woes, but just the fact that Apple has just done nothing right in AI is like one of those things that's like buying something and just like at least convincing the market that you're trying. The analogy here is, as a huge soccer fan, it's like I'm an Arsenal fan, and it's like every summer we're waiting for them to buy a player. And it's like, you know, and every, you know, you're like, are you going to buy? And it's like, of course they miss out on all the best players, but then it's like, buy anybody. It's like, so I'm at that point now where it's like, Apple, do anything. But, you know, Mark Zuckerberg is saying, I'm going to spend $100 million on a person. He's not, he's literally investing 9 figures, or at least putting offers out there, according to who Elon Musk refers to as Scam Altman. He's putting them out. Yeah, I got a little diatribe on that for later, but basically offering $100 million to top talent. First of all, anyone out there that is still a bubble bear about AI, you are absolutely going to get burned. You are so wrong. You realize that, like, when someone like Zuck is willing to spend $100 million to bring talent, just a person who knows about this, it's because he realizes that the entire future, the balance of Meta as a company's ability to be successful in the near to midterm actually depends on them being able to convince the world's leading AI researchers to come over, because this stuff is very real. So, you know, you look at kind of what's going on right here, the signal that it's sending, you know, by the way, you know, the Futurum Equities signal, that's what we send out every day. It's amazing. The signal that's being sent out is that. So I realized I kind of went off the reservation, but of course, Zuck is looking at this, because Zuck right now is looking at, where do I get world-class AI talent? Because really our business future depends on getting world-class AI talent.
So I mean, I want your takes on this as well, but like, first off, it's $100 trillion pie. Jensen just said it was a couple weeks ago that AI infrastructure spend is going to be cross 100 trillion. 100 million for high-end talent this early in the race is pennies.
Bring it.
Pennies.
I just want to know, am I that talented? Are you that? I mean, you've got some good things to say about AI. You know, hey, Mark, if you're out there, I think the 3 of us are willing to offer a 3 for 100 deal if you want to chip in. I know quite a bit about AI.
I mean, yeah, but again, going back to, I mean, it makes sense for Meta, because I think it's probably the worst kept secret out there that Zuck is frustrated from the progress on Llama 3 to Llama 4. It was not as much of a jump as Llama 2 to Llama 3. I think their lack of ability for, I don't know, getting the inference cost, getting the latency, getting the deployment maturity to the scale that he wanted to, that's comparable to GPT-4, is just so drastically different right now that as agentic AI is beginning, there is some real fears out there if you're Zuck, because Zuck knows where the puck's heading. He's very great. He's very adamant on, like, he knows where tech revolutions are going to be heading towards. He was the first. He's really done the best at AR and VR. He, right from the gate, is like, LLM, we're going to create an open source of it. That is eventually going to be the inevitability for all these LLMs. And the only reason, another hot topic I want to talk about later on, but on why ChatGPT is going to be the Netflix of LLMs. It doesn't matter how many are out there, but put that on the shelf.
I actually may not agree with you. I may not agree with you
on the consumer side. On the consumer side, I should say.
I still may not agree with you on that, and we'll have it out. That's fun. First of all, though, I think it's worth mentioning. I went on CNBC. I talked about this last week, but scaling laws are a very real thing. And the ceiling of scaling laws with AI is a very real thing. If you think about how fast we've moved, the fact that they've run into the issues with Behemoth that they have, this is not surprising that when you're trying to scale technology at this rate, that you're going to run into some challenges. It doesn't mean they won't succeed. Meta is, I would argue, in terms of companies that have monetized AI, maybe one of, if not the most successful company that isn't named Nvidia, in terms of putting AI into their tools, technology, and platforms, and actually being able to go into an earnings call and say, we are scaling our revenue and our earnings. And think about, like, what they're going to do with, like, AI-powered ad platforms. Like, they are going to literally democratize AI, visual AI. They are going to.
That's why I'm scared for Trade Desk. Like, I literally sold Trade Desk a bit.
Boy, the agency business model. They're going to absolutely turn it on its head. And I may or may not have some insight. We may, do some work with companies like Meta. But I'm telling you, like, and by the way, like, you can take this into any industry. Ray will have fun with this, but, like, you realize that right now we're looking at using AI to develop chips that would actually completely reconstruct the design of a chip. So right now, every stage of chip development is this kind of iterative process of, taking it from a design to a layout to to a test chip, to a, and in the future, you can actually program an LLM. I've seen this. I can't tell you which company, but I've actually seen this to actually say, I want to design a chip with these kinds of specs, and it will lay out the entire chip and design it using an LLM. So like every industry, like we're the ones that are obvious to us, we're talking about, but the ones that are less obvious, it's like, the scaling laws are going to be broken with AI. And this is why Zuck is spending this kind of money. I see your eyes lighting up, Shay. I'm telling you, this is not like the stuff that we're seeing. We're not even in the game. We're not even in the game. It's like, I was going to write an article. I wrote an article this week talking about the future of our business and research and how it's going to change. Like the actual title of almost every business owner's blog right now about their future should be "We're fucked." Because if we don't change like how you run your business because of what AI is going to do, you are so fucked. And so like it is amazingly cool, but you're either going to be on the boat and you're going to be using this stuff, and Zuck gets it. He's got to tap the balance sheet. And this is why I think Apple is so insanely stupid that they aren't showing more wares and getting this right. I mean, maybe they're trying, but it's like, you got to show your investors something.
Well, do you think it's because of the scaling laws? They want to wait to see that actually mature and there's going to be better value and they can figure out the piece on the board?
I would like to say that I'm inside of that. That's one company I'm not inside of. What I'll tell you is it doesn't make any sense to me at all. It just doesn't. I mean, look, I think we could all argue when you look at the worst disruptions of history, the BlackBerries and the Blockbusters and the Kodaks, they're great business school stories. I'm sure Ray read about them in college. All of them believed they had a deep moat that could not be penetrated, that they had time to basically ride out the business prosperity of their current moats, while the disruption would come, and they would, of course, naturally lead the digital film revolution, the Netflix, the DVDs in the mail or in person, the phone. Like BlackBerry had such a big install base, they weren't going to lose the customers, they were going to upgrade, but do it in time because they didn't want to break their current money-making model. Well, Apple's got that 2.4 billion installed users around the world that live and die every day. I've got 3 Apple devices within my hand reach. I mean, it's easy for them to literally say, like, no one's ever going to leave us, but if you look at OpenAI, look at Sam Altman, he's basically saying, look, I bought Jony Ive's company for $6 billion. I doubt it's for a pin you're going to wear around your neck. There's got to be some idea that's bigger than that. That basically in the AI era, there is no applications as we know them. It's all abstractions in real time. And so the whole platform is going to change. And so it's like, Apple, are they cocky or are they stupid? Because I can't figure out what the third alternative is.
I mean, it's funny because I had a hot take that ended up being way harder than I thought it was intended to, but I agree with your sentiment on Apple. But it was because I saw history doesn't repeat itself, but often rhymes. I think Intel is a better case study on what Apple's at risk of becoming. Where if you didn't know, Intel was the center of the computing universe. They were just such a conglomerate. Nobody could have envisioned them just to be coasting into just fading out into the sunset of this next multiple tech revolutions. But I think Intel didn't fail because they stopped making good chips. They failed because they kept making chips for the wrong world. That's what's the worry on Apple, where they're building brilliant hardware, but for an interface model that's being rewritten at a rapid pace. And I think that all their innovation on AI is just screaming defensive rather than offensive. And the very brief update on AI, even WWDC 25, it could not have gone worse in my opinion. Right off the gate, no AI news.
So ask Ray, what do you think the prospects are for Apple? Or sorry, for Intel. Start with Intel. Do you think Lip-Bu Tan? I mean, he's got tons of street cred. I'm sure you followed at least good chunks of his career. Before we even get back to Apple, because people are passionate about Intel. Most of them are passionately think they're going to fail, but there is the other side. There are people that absolutely believe they're the dark horse. I believe that Intel is the answer potentially to U.S.'s manufacturing of U.S.-based chips, although they keep fumbling. And I mean, 18A is going to be the breaking point if they can get 18A right. But what do you think? Is there a renaissance for Intel?
Yeah, I think Intel's question is very, very complicated. That's number one. And we need to separate kind of foundry and also kind of on their product design part, right? On the products, they are facing challenges in terms of they're just building the AI server CPUs, right? Their market share is being eroded by AMD over the past few quarters. And it's pretty clear it's backed by data, right? When we see that, and used to be AI server CPU used to be the biggest, one of the biggest selling points for Intel. They are basically dominating the AI server market. That's number one. And we are also seeing their market share being eroded in PC. PC still right now, they are dominated, still their biggest the revenue sources. The problem right now that really drag their balance sheet is the foundry. Because I think in 2023 and 2024, they lose 20 billion just from the foundry service, right? And I think speaking to 18A or 18AP and moving forward, if you look at a roadmap, look at exact number for the power consumption, transistor density, stuff like that, it's actually competitive. But the problem here, there's a couple problems. Number one, I think Daniel know this better than me. They need to find a customer first, right? To find a customer right now, customers don't have enough confidence to see. Number one, you need to do 18A or 18AP well, and you need to be able to scale up in a cost that the company can switch their production to you instead of TSMC, right?
Well, what happened to Amazon? I think Amazon tested with them, right? Did that not go anywhere?
No. So they have two customers right now. So for Microsoft and AWS, but I don't think there's a major products like Trainian is built by 18A. I don't think that's the case for now.
But, yeah, and that's not, no. I mean, they don't have a single logic customer.
Right.
They've got some packaging wins, and they've got some specialty networking cards. I think Microsoft and AWS are going to make a network chip on 18A, or at least they've committed to do that. But nobody's building their XPU, their GPU, their CPU, except for Intel. Intel is still Intel's biggest customer on the logic level.
Yeah, so I think to really demonstrate the success of 18A or whatever 18A, 18AP, 18PT, or the following 14A, the best way to demonstrate their success in foundry is demonstrate through their products, right? So Panther Lake is dual sourcing, one for Intel 18A, one for part of that for TSMC. For the Novavac, we're also dual sourcing, one for Intel foundry service and one for TSMC. If Intel can really demonstrate success through their own products, they can potentially attract the customer. And that's where I believe they should really focus on, right? And apparently, I think Lip-Bu Tan doing a great job right now. They are doing a lot of structural, cultural, organizational changes, right? Number one, the key goal here is cutting down all the costs. Number two, change the culture to be used to be, and that's what I heard, through the news, you can see it's a lot more bureaucratic, right? I think in the earnings, they talk about one of the KPI for a team is hey, depends on the head count of the team, right? If you hire more people, that's actually higher KPI for you. So there's a lot of problems within organizations. So it requires some time to address. Yeah.
Do you think it's so? The theory is, or thesis is, they need to trim the fats, reallocate those soldiers towards actual talent to help the technical front, because right now the testing isn't there enough to get customers. Is that what the thesis is on, the fat trimming stage that Intel's doing right now?
Yeah, I don't think it's essentially testing, right? I think essentially you want to keep the best R&D people, keep the best foundry people in there. I think probably right now a lot of the headcount cuts will come to marketing, sales, which is very unfortunate, but I think that's the necessary cost cutting for Intel to do. Given and apparently from Lip-Bu Tan's perspective, he needs to do something from the investor's perspective, right?
So how far away do you think they are on getting to that point where they can actually attract a customer? Is this more of a month's journey, or is it more of a multi-year journey?
I think still unclear for me for now.
Yeah. Oh, it's that early. Interesting.
I would actually say that the number one objective that Lip-Bu has would be to get a customer on Foundry. And by the way, that actually opens up their doors to a possible spin-off too. The actual design business without Foundry functions okay. They've become a little too dependent on TSMC, and that's created some risk for some of their newest nodes. for some of their newest chips, especially on the CPU, the PC tiles, because they've gotten too expensive. It's eroded their margin that they haven't been able to make them in house because being the IDM. But like, if I were them winning one of Qualcomm, an AMD, an Apple, any of them, to basically say we're going to design one, even as a resilience layer, to say 20% of our GPUs will be built with them. By the way, Shay, if you actually look at our AI 15 list, which is, of course, TSMC is what, number 2? It's our number 1.
They're top dog. They're the top dog. Yeah.
Sorry, how did I even get that wrong? They're our number 1. And I've gone in public and I've said that they are a monopoly. To be very clear, like they have no apex predator, no natural predator in the wild that can take them out. They have all the pricing power. Now they haven't been abusive of that, but they have been using it. You've seen they've been raising prices and raising prices.
15% every 6 months or so now. Yeah.
And nobody's fighting. And by the way, this to me is like, if you're Intel, you're going, okay, you're in the most U.S. and onshore favorable administration the world may ever have. Meaning this is probably the most favorable any U.S. president will ever be about manufacturing things in the U.S. Certainly be the most favorable any president will ever be about a U.S. company manufacturing in the U.S., meaning not only wanting like TSMC, because TSMC will never bring its IP here. Like, be very clearly, they will always be a node behind, and they will not bring their best talent to the U.S. It doesn't make any sense. They would be literally just their own national security defense risk that they would create if they brought their best talent here is a reason they won't do it. But you literally look at the conditions of which a deal should be able to be struck. Like, if I was the Trump administration, I was Intel, and I wanted to have U.S.-based manufacturing, I would be literally working out a deal that makes it so attractive from a tax base. But the bottom line is this: they do not have confidence in the node. They don't have confidence in it. And so I've talked to CEOs of mid-size and large chip makers that use lots of capacity at TSMC, and they will literally just keep going there because they do not have the confidence. And right now, it's, by the way, not just Intel. It's been Samsung and it's been others. On the logic side, nobody has been able to break the moat.
Well, do you think it's because like AI machine learning is already so difficult that you're not going to want to go for the second fiddle in that whole space? You're going to want to pay up for the highest quality just to have an even apple to apple fight?
Ray, you were going to say something. I'll let you jump in here. But...
Yeah, so I was just building up on your point. I agree, like all the policy environments, right? You're seeing TSMC has more dominant position in foundry market, right? But if the customer, even in all these conditions, they still choose for TSMC, I think that says a lot about Intel's status in the foundry market, as well as their technical competence, and also their market position against TSMC. And that's the things I really concerned these days to Intel, right? Because if all the policy or micro environments are very favorable to you, and currently in US, there's a key agenda to having domestic manufacturing for advanced chips, but the customer and the fabless companies still don't want to choose Intel, that will have really concern for Intel moving forward. Yeah.
So do you think, like, I want to also ask you another question, Ray, because there is a narrative that if Intel does solve this, like, just, I know it's a mirage at this point, but if they actually get there, is there a headwind for AMD on the CPU space then? Because AMD has been able to capitalize on the lack of Intel for years, and now is that their success at the demise a potential headwind for AMD down the line?
You mean the Intel's success in the foundry, or the
in foundry in the CPU space? Essentially, if they figure it out on their own, they haven't done in 5 years.
I actually don't think that's a big concern for AMD, right? Because most of the products for Intel right now still manufacturing in Intel, right? Yeah. So like, I think, the competition point right now is still, I'll say it won't change that much, even Intel's foundry success. But if Intel's foundry success, that will help a lot about for their balance sheets, for their broader financial situation as a company.
Yeah, I think if they got margins up, it would give them more flexibility to play the defensive posture they've always played. So remember, Intel had like 90% of data center servers and like 80% of CPU PC for a long time. And now that you've seen that erode, big chunks of that eroded, but they still have a ton of market share.
Right.
I mean, they still have more than 50% in almost all the categories.
75 for the AI server. 75, yeah.
Yeah. And so they still, and a lot of it's in enterprise. They've not had hyperscale. They've failed in their sort of XPU. They have the Gaudi product's not that bad. We've actually tested it in our lab. It has a potential to be useful in inference. It just the software wasn't flexible enough to be used for training. So that was a bit of a problem for it. But if they actually got their stuff together, one of the things that Intel could do is sort of protect its moats. Nobody's money whipped their channel better than Intel has. And so AMD's never wanted to spend the money. Qualcomm, I think in many ways is a pretty big threat too. And then another one of our AI 15 companies, but and specifically on in the ARM transition, because one of the things you didn't talk about at all here is just what is the future of x86. And so, AMD has diversified its business a lot in different areas, but like the x86 ecosystem is very much in jeopardy right now. You're seeing how much strength ARM has gotten in data center servers. You're seeing they obviously own the mobile device market. They're increasingly winning designs in the, ARM-based. The Qualcomm is ARM-based, despite their woes. They are built on ARM. And so, is their share there and is share at risk? So of course, AMD with Instinct and such has a chance. And AMD EPYC has been very successful, which is an x86-based server product. But they've also invested in Pensando, their back-end network, front-end network, which is interesting, by the way, because we talked about the AMD melt-up, and maybe there's a good moment to talk about it. It's like AMD's going toe-to-toe with Broadcom. I mean, AMD's actually saying like, hey, we of course, Ultra Ethernet and all this stuff we could have aligned. We could have stayed focused on the GPUs and done like a kind of a network with Broadcom, but AMD's trying to do the whole thing. They're building rack scale. And so AMD's taking a play straight out of Nvidia's book and saying, we'll build the whole rack scale up and top, up and down and out. So there's a lot going on. I mean, that's a lot of TAM for AMD to go after, but it's also like, you're going to try to do so many things at once, and they're small relatively. They're small relative to Nvidia. They're small relative to Broadcom. So they're definitely picking fights with with Goliath.
Yeah, one thing I will add on in just quick one point. I think Intel, if you look at like since 2022, the key difference I see from Intel, besides we talk about foundry, it's their growth is actually don't have AI, and we see AMD, Qualcomm, Nvidia, they significantly benefited by AI, right? And I think that's another like key difference that I think another key challenge that Intel want to address, right? You really want to get on the AI boat, moving forward with others. That's the challenging part.
I mean, I think for AMD shareholders, you guys have seen what it's like to like pick a horse in this AI race, and it was ill-timed. Let's just say AMD. It was a moment to be an AMD investor for the training data component of this AI race. Like now, I think we're all in agreement that inference is their key to finally get into the AI house, the front door of the AI house. Now it's up to them to kind of get a seat at the table with the Nvidias, the Broadcoms of the world. But we all agree, like this is their opportunity now.
It's more crowded though. It's more crowded now for them too. Like, we have them in they're in our top 15.
Yeah.
So we clearly see it, but I think, maybe it's worth repeating for anyone that's watching this that hasn't read our reports or hasn't been smart enough to sign up for your daily signal. If you haven't signed up, you should definitely sign up for it. It's really great. But, if you look at Lisa's TAM, that $500 billion by 2028, by the way, that may not be big enough. And we're going to be doing some work here. Ray up there is going to be doing some work here to help us actually determine how fast that space is going to grow. But say it is $500 billion. I actually have about a 25% carve out that I believe will be custom of that number. Okay. And there's some different numbers. Marvell validated a similar number as well at their recent investor day. So if around 25%, that means there's about $100 billion of custom in 2028. And that means about $400 billion is going to be merchant AI accelerators, which is basically right now, it's going to be a combination of AMD and Nvidia with a tiny bit carved off to Intel. So I keep saying, like, here's the AMD opportunity is they can continue to not gain share from Nvidia and grow by about 500% just because that's how much the market's going to grow.
High tide raises all boats.
If they can get a little bit of market share, they could actually grow more than that. And, my models, and this is all just mental math right now, but like the models I've done about this is like, I think Nvidia probably has peaked in market share. And that, by the way, again, don't get mad at me. That doesn't mean they can't grow a ton. They might stay 80 or 85%, and that market's going to go to $1 trillion. I mean, you're talking mega numbers. But at the same time, that's maybe a little bit coming off to Intel. AMD maybe grabbing a little bit. Of course, custom's going to shave off some of this, as we talked about. And so NVIDIA can be huge. AMD can get a lot bigger in this particular space. And of course, Broadcom's a winner. Marvell could take off little pieces. I won't even talk about the all chips in them. They're barely companies, in my opinion. But they have done a good job of being a good partner. Because, again, if you know how to put the pieces together of a chip, if you know where to get the foundry access, you know where to get the IP access, you can put all the pieces together. And that's what the all chip is saying. But what we haven't seen, and by the way, we haven't seen from Marvell, and this is why they're not on our list, in my opinion, and what we haven't seen from Alchip and these other companies, MediaTek, is we haven't seen a multi-generation volume ramp design of a successful AI chip. And so that's only Broadcom right now. So
a little bit on Marvell. I think Marvell, like, they are doing great design for Amazon, right? Like, I think the problem is like having one ASIC. I mean, how much you can scale, right? So that really pressure your margin.
And the fear of whether or not they're getting the next one. And by the way, is it a winner takes all? And I talked to one of the top execs at Marvell, and I think that's one of the misnomers in the market for investors out there. Everybody wants to say, is this a winner takes all? Meaning, can Trainium 3 be partially done by two different designers? Can it actually? Yeah. And the answer is yes. I mean, we're seeing it with Google right now. Like, they have TPUs that are being designed at MediaTek.
It's winner take layers, not all.
Winners take some. And by the way, as AI chips, custom chips scale, just like merchant, there might be 17 different AI chips in a single V. So V7 might have V7 inference, it might have V7 training, and it might have V7, specialty for data, V7 for network offload, V7 for the edge. Like, there's all these different versions that could be created, and every one of them could have a different design win, because these hyperscalers are going to be total whores. They're going to try to find the most efficient design partner that can make the highest quality product, but it's all about vertical integration. They want to make more money. The reason they're doing this is because if they just wanted the best product, it'd be NVIDIA. It's obvious. They would just stack it all in NVIDIA and build AI factories. These things, but they're not the most efficient. They're not the most price efficient, and they can't control it. By the way, do they want all their data sitting on someone else's hardware, or do they want all the data sitting on theirs so they can literally build and optimize everything in their own stack? And I think it's pretty obvious which way they should go.
Yeah, I totally agree, Daniel, especially on the point on the different AI workload, right? I think TPU is a very good example. If you look at their V7, there's many different versions. Some of them is for training, some of them is for inference, right? And you can have different designers to take that, right? And one design is already a big order for companies like MediaTek or like L Chips, all these companies, right? They are earning pretty good orders from Google. Yeah.
So question for you, Ray, though. I know this was our moonshot pick on our Futurum AI 15 list. I'm hyper bullish on it. It's a Sterile Labs, just because I think there's a specific angle on what they're doing on the bottleneck on the potential inference AI boom that we're about to experience. What's your take on the Sterile Labs? Is it too niche? Do you think that Nvidia is, because they're in a way competing with what Nvidia is already offering, but Nvidia is partnering up with them through their NVLink fusion. So like maybe it's not as much of a competitive headwind, but like, what is your take on the Sterile Labs? I'm super curious.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's NVLink or the new NVLink fusion that you include basically the third party solutions. I think for now, I haven't seen that there's a competitive enough alternative toward NVLink. Even the UN Link that offered by totally another ecosystem that led by Broadcom and AMD, if you look at the spec, it's actually not that competitive toward the NVLink that NVIDIA is currently offer. So I will say I will be relatively conservative towards Sterile Lab. They're moving
interesting forward. Okay, and what's your confidence on Marvell solving the next gen after their current Trainium right now? Because that's like the biggest. I think that's Daniel was one who mentioned this to me. Like that is kind of a potential headwind that they have to solve the narrative for.
It is. I think it's also very debatable. If you look at all the analysts in Wall Street, let's just think they're trying to find out. My understanding, it's the L chip, not L chip, the Trainium 3 and 4 could potentially goes to L chip. But we are not sure whether Trainium 3, they could be dual sourcing, right? They could go to both L chip and Marvell. That's the thing I think people haven't figured out. But what I heard, the sentiment, it looks like L chip have better, it's more favorable situation here. But we need to see the thing here is like everything's involved rapidly, right? You can have an NRE agreements with both L chip and Marvell, and then essentially they decide, hey, we're gonna go with Marvell or go with L chips, right? So like it's really hard to you have a very precise channel check for the supply chain.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think I think there's about 10 to 33% of the market to carve off in total custom AI chips from Broadcom. I think that's how dominant Broadcom is. Just being candid. I think so. What I'm saying is right now, I think they probably have more than 90% of the volume. I'm not talking about some of the designs, but I'm talking about none of those are volume yet. And so the bottom line though is that, and also a lot of what's coming down the pike, whether it's been OpenAI, whether it's been Apple, like others that are planning, they all seem to at least early expectations is will land with Broadcom as well. Now, again, it could change, but it's also just like the capacity to scale, because that's what I keep talking about. Like, I don't think it's that these companies are all capable of doing this. It's at what scale can they do it, and how much of the long. If you go back to our Zuck conversation about the big bets being made, how much are they willing to bet on alternatives?
Right. And I think the biggest, this is very good point on Broadcom, because if you look at the company that invests the most in ASICs, Google, Meta, they all go to, and also the upcoming OpenAI, they all goes to Broadcom instantly. I don't think they really think about it. It's just like, hey, we're gonna choose the best. We want to have the best AI server stack. Go to our data center to run our AI models. Then that's exactly the things we're trying to do. Another point on the Marvell. I think Marvell, I think just 2 days ago, they have a custom AI investor day. They actually announced they have a lot more, new customer coming in. So I think that's another upside we can think about it. But I think the investor right now is thinking like, okay, how all this customer will translate to your revenue moving forward. I think that's the things that they are not sure.
Maybe put the bow on it though. Marvell's opportunity in like network and transport is big, and that's the thing. Like we're super hyper focused on the AI chip, but like moving the data, the network infrastructure, and the custom chips for network are a huge opportunity. Storage and network and connectivity and automotive and all the things they do that's not just AI chips in the data center. That's a really large op. And I think that's why the market responded so positively on it. Maybe that's the bow we wrap around, is the market came away feeling like the TAM was bigger and the opportunity is bigger.
I mean, the sell side notes were wild that day after the investor day. It was very bullish.
Thing, like on Marvell, they actually have, they have like a slides, right? They talk about just XPU itself. They also talk about called XPU attacks, which essentially they included the networking, the fabrics, blah blah blah, goes to the data center, as a one category of potential addressable market for the company. So I think that tells me a lot how the company views this opportunity as broader AI developments. Yeah.
So Ray, you brought up a company that I actually really want to touch up, and this perfect time for our last segment, OpenAI, because I think this week there was some news of OpenAI and the Microsoft breakup, and I know Daniel and I have been talking about this a lot. Daniel has a very hot take on Sam Altman and that whole situation. I'll give my quick little take before I pop one over to Daniel, but I think this Microsoft and OpenAI breakup is very real. I think it's inevitable that was going to happen, because if you remember a couple years ago when this partnership or the 50% equity stake happened, it was a win-win opportunity for both companies. Microsoft needed a point A to point B shortcut to get into the LM race. OpenAI needed the validation from Microsoft as well as the infrastructure to kind of have that first mover advantage. However, the issue with Microsoft essentially did that deal to buy the exclusivity of using just OpenAI, but exclusivity only works if they remain small, and OpenAI is a $300 billion company now. So clearly they think that they belong at the table and they don't want to be someone's little sibling anymore. And now they're flexing their muscles a bit, and it's becoming a bit of the narrative is, oh, this is OpenAI's crisis, where I don't see it that way. I think that this is an opportunity for Microsoft to really become that picks and shovels play, and you're seeing that in recent headlines the past couple of months. They're benefiting off that. But I do think we wrote in this yesterday, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and the Futurum Daily Signal was, I think a lot of people aren't talking about who the real winner of this breakup is, and it's the one company who can absorb all the shock from the aftermath, and that's Google. And again, Google is just the only one who owns a full stack in-house. But we got into that in real detail in the Futurum Daily Signal. But I want to pass it to you, Daniel, on what that your take is on this Microsoft OpenAI breakup.
Sam Altman is diabolical. That guy is like, he is absolute, and again, I know Elon calls him Scam Altman, but remember, we got to do the quick play of this guy, like what he believes he's able to accomplish. Well, he's accomplished a lot, so I'm not a hater, but he was going to raise $7 trillion to replace TSMC.
I forgot about that. Oh my God.
Then he was going, he's building the generative search engine to replace search. He's going to take out Google. He also said he could build a better social network than X or Elon, in the feuding. So he's going to take out X. I think it was just this week he said that he is going to he could do a better ADAS system than Waymo or Tesla. So, and then of course he bought the PIN company because he's going to take out Apple. So this guy literally believes he is single-handedly able.
He's a god, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, I still, there's that quote, like, anyways, we'll go back. I won't do any movie riffs right now. But the net is the guy obviously believes, he's infallible. And so part of the problem is he made a deal with a company that has more scale, more operating leverage, and more power. So when he needed that 10 billion early on, that first wave of cash, and you remember when Sam almost got thrown out of OpenAI, there was this whole, I'm over them, I'm under them. I've basically, like, he knew at that time he had them. Now they reinstalled Sam as CEO, but ultimately, it was all about what's best for Microsoft. Now, even Microsoft, there's been this breakup is not new. This is not a new thing. Workloads have been spinning off of Microsoft for a long time, going over to CoreWeave. You've heard about some of the infighting. Microsoft's starting to build some of its own models. It's been thinking about that and, of course, addressing that. And then, of course, opening up its aperture to different models on Azure, because the exclusivity kind of goes two ways, right? I mean, it's like, but in the end, Microsoft didn't want its entire future to be dependent on rented land. Having said that, it was about what, 20 billion that Microsoft has put in, 20 something billion. It's probably worth over 10 times that now. So it's an incredible investment. Satya has the controls. Sam wants him to give him the free reign to run and go public. Why would they do that? What benefit is there to Microsoft to basically play fair? And now he wants to run off to the regulators, because the guy that wants to take over TSMC, Nvidia, Tesla, Apple, and Google and X single-handedly would be a guy that you should definitely give regulatory support to and break antitrust law and claim to break antitrust laws, when all they're trying to do is trying to whatever the contract. They're basically trying to enforce the utilization of the contract in its current term. I think OpenAI is in a bit of trouble. But it goes back to my thesis earlier about why I said I actually like Google in the long run. Mm-hmm. Google, to me, is they're the world's most hated company until Sam Altman showed up. And now Sam is the world's most hated. But by the way, OpenAI's tech is really good. So this is not any indictment on the tech. I just mean like I just think in the end, Google has got so much more leverage, and they still have a huge search user base. So
also, I think there's some fuckery happening in OpenAI. Like, there's a talent exodus. I forgot when it was, a year ago. It was a lot of people close to Sam just left. That does not happen when you're that disruptive in AI that early. So I think my take is, like, I'm also curious on what do you guys think. I don't think OpenAI will ever be a standalone publicly traded company. Maybe Sam doesn't feel the need to, because he can raise Sam money in the private markets. But I think eventually the board's going to probably put pressure on him to take them public. I don't think they're going to be a standalone company.
They can't go public. They can't. They actually can't do it. Well, Microsoft controls it. They can't do it.
True.
So it doesn't even matter. And they're asserting their power right now. They cannot go public. And by the way, they're going to lose like 30 billion of their investment capital that they got from SoftBank and others at this point. And by the way, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure there was a little bit of anger in the Microsoft realms about their role in Stargate.
Oh, that's a good point. You don't hear about Stargate that often anymore. I know there's like a lot of big rock like headlines now, but like Stargate's still very real, biggest project in quite some time. But yeah, I mean, what's your take on all that, Ray? I'm curious to hear what you think about it.
Stargates or for the Microsoft and OpenAI?
No, Microsoft, OpenAI by itself. Do you think they're going to solve AGI, be the first AGI, etc.? Like Sam thinks so.
Yeah, so still, I don't know about AGI. I just feel there's no like really definition on AGI. So,
Yeah.
well, I think like the biggest I think here for Microsoft or OpenAI, they are stuck in a point that no one can make any compromise, right? For Microsoft, if they want OpenAI just go public and they don't undermine them anyways, right? OpenAI could also partner with all other companies, right? And they could create competition toward Microsoft, right? Because they are offering the best enterprise software for the from the Copilot to all the enterprise users, right? I mean, OpenAI can do the same to other applications suppliers, right? That's one thing they are concerning. And other thing, I think another contention point is like how much equity they should hold. Right? I think that's the thing reported by Financial Times, if I'm correct. I think that's sort of the things I'm seeing. I don't, and this thing has been maybe more than a year, right? I think we constantly see reporting about the contentious point between like, hey, like there's some tensions going on between the management in Microsoft, management in OpenAI. We're constantly seeing that, and so I'm less surprised about all the tensions regarding OpenAI going to public and kind of being slowed down, however, being guarded by Microsoft. Yeah.
Do you think if OpenAI doesn't, if Apple doesn't solve consumer AI, they're going to acquire OpenAI in 2027 and get Sam Altman to become CEO?
Oh, I feel I agree. Like Apple should maybe acquire like really capable company that offer AI models. If not, they want
not $500 billion company. I get that.
yeah. And another thing is like I think what's interesting about Apple, I think they are very fortunate in a way that we haven't seen the AI smartphone that really take off, right? We haven't seen AI become the deciding factors for people to replace their cell phone, right? For example, Samsung, they implement their Galaxy AI. I think it was like last year or 2 years ago, but you actually don't see there's the AI, I want to replace my phone. You haven't seen that much. So, that takes some buffer time for Apple to really figure out their AI applications. So like you see this year, they lowered the expectation for very, very low. Like nobody really expect that much on AI for Apple. But I think the next year will be a deciding point. People are
one of the worst calls was the super cycle, and some people just absolutely made that call and over beat that drum. And I mean, again, you only get to be wrong like 6 straight quarters before you become Matthew Wood. But what?
Yeah, no, that's why they would. Yeah, I was gonna say that's why they went this complete opposite end on the spectrum, the WWDC 25, because they were so aggressive last year. They just went underballed it this year. But go on, Ray. I cut you off.
Yeah. I just think next year will be very important, right? If Apple failed to deliver AI for 2 straight years, if that time next year it will be 3 straight years, right? And I think that will be the part that like people are seriously concerned, and people will be like, hey, like I think you just couldn't do it, right? You can be like, you can fail, but like, in the third year, people will be like, hey, you just couldn't do it.
It's okay to, Dana, I want your opinion on this because you talk to CEOs literally on a daily basis. But Apple spent $10 billion on a failed Apple car, and that was totally fine. But why won't they spend $10 billion to acquire Perplexity to catch up in LM? Like, what's the psychology there? It doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, I can't figure out why, even if it just appeases your shareholders, you don't show that you can make a move. I mean, Apple's been an ecosystem company all along. It always has been. It partners to build. I mean, over time, it's become more vertically integrated, right? It builds its own chips. It builds more of its own content. It wanted its own, but I mean, for many years, you did Netflix. You didn't do Apple Movie. I mean, and then of course, over time, once they've succeeded in something, then they build a product and maybe own the product. It's, they've got some models. I mean, you saw that ridiculous paper they published, which, by the way, like I said, wasn't entirely wrong, but it was just ridiculously Like,
Yeah,
it was
if you're
like,
last in the race, of course you're gonna like say what
we're
they
gonna,
did
you
on
know,
that paper.
we're going to come out with this paper the day before WWDC, right when we're going to basically totally shit the bed in terms of doing anything meaningful around AI, and we're going to then proclaim that everything that's being done is not real. So it was sort of like, you know, what room was this thought of as like a great strategy, right? And so ultimately, though, you know, I do think there's some challenges for Apple to do M&A. So of course, that's probably just the general, them being the one or two or three largest company in the world. I think some of it is they probably have this arrogance that they can do this, and they don't, you know, they keep thinking they can do this. But at some point, you got to say, like, because they've done some SLMs and larger models, they have some work done. I've read some of the research. They use some models for their own stuff, and they've been doing AI in some way, shape, or form for a long time, but they haven't been able to democratize anything useful. I mean, Apple Intelligence is an absolute piece of garbage. It is useless. You know, again, I guess a partnership with OpenAI, in their opinion, was enough, but I don't think their investors feel great about it. That's just, if I had $1 and you could put it in them or put it in Nvidia right now, I put it in Nvidia. It's just that simple.
100%.
Yeah, and
I mean,
Apple also try to build an AI server right now, right? So that's another thing they're trying to do. I'm not sure.
I didn't know that. Interesting, really?
Yeah, so they are building an AI server as well. So I'm not sure which year, but I think that's one. I think this was reported earlier. Yeah.
Well, I mean, with Broadcom, right? Wasn't Broadcom going to build their chip for them?
I forgot exactly, but I know they are trying to build their AI server. They're
Listen,
trying to go into that.
By the way, if the amount of time it took them to build a modem is any indicator, they should probably partner for a while.
I mean, they spend billions of dollars on financial buybacks, so just take a percentage of that and be aggressive on M&A. But listen,
$600 billion in buybacks
a year.
No, but like 600 billion, I think, in the last decade.
That's crazy. That's just financial engineering. Like that's, I don't know. I have a, that's really interesting to me. But we listen, we got to take back the alpha a little. We're at the top of the hour. This was like, again, for all the listeners, we had zero prep. Daniel legit had an idea. I was like, let's hop on today. And like, I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we had no material. This is total casual conversation, organic, no script, no pre-production. So I had a great time. I'm sure, I hope you guys did too. And I hope all the listeners got some insights from the geniuses of Ray and Daniel. And
give us some feedback. I mean, tell us, you know, everybody out there, give us some feedback. Like, would you want to hear from us more? I mean, there's not enough Shay. The Shay spice is untenable. There's an insatiable demand for Shay. But like, what about the rest of us? What about Ray here? You want a little more Ray? What do we want?
The Ray swag, Ray swag, the Danny muscle.
Yeah, I would just love to hear people, you know, kind of talk about what you think about this episode, you know, comments, you know, whether you want to see more, you know, if you'd like to see more, maybe we can jump in every Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more viewers after we're off this, because it's gonna be on my page. Comment below, guys. So appreciate you, love, for that comment right there. But yeah, I want to do this more of a cadence weekly. We'll talk about it offline, guys. But anyway, enjoy your Friday. Try to relax a bit. Next week is gonna be. Let's see if we hit all-time highs next week, and hopefully things are pretty quiet over the weekend. But appreciate you all. Tune in next time.
Appreciate you all. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the Friday and the weekend.